There's a print that hangs in my son's bedroom. It's a print of an illuminated poem by William Blake, both the words and the artwork by the same artist. Blake was an interesting man who lived about 200 years ago, and the reason that poem hangs in my son's bedroom is my wife, who is a professor of English, specializes in Blake. And we found ourselves turning to this poem over and over again when Jamie was born, and thus it ended up in his room. And he used to be so enamored of it that he would insist that every night that I would take him over and read it to him. So much so that I now have the thing memorized and could do it in my sleep. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead? Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly bright? Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice? Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek, and he is mild. He became a little child. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. This is Good Shepherd Sunday, a day on which we celebrate the one whom we now know as shepherd of our flock, Jesus. But before Jesus was known to us as shepherd, he was as that little lamb, an innocent child born in a manger in Bethlehem, and one who was offered on our behalf. Of course, the words that we think of on this night are probably not first the words of Blake's poem, but rather the words of the poem that we all read together under Tom's leadership a few minutes ago. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and makes me walk in straight paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. You set a banquet before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the Lord's house forever. Those words were written long before Jesus. Long before I think even most people had anticipated Jesus. The author of that psalm probably was not thinking, first and foremost, of an earthly Messiah, but rather of the God who does not abandon. The word shepherd in the Old Testament is not ever first applied to God. It's rather the word that God uses to refer to the kings of Israel. God appoints kings and says, "You shall be shepherds of my people." And if you know your Old Testament at all, you know that those kings were generally a pretty lousy bunch. They were shepherds who ran away, who abandoned, who mistreated. There was very little good that can be said about any of them. When the psalmist wrote, therefore, what the psalmist is saying, even if all these shepherds around me are bad, I know that you, God, are still good. That you are the ultimate shepherd, and therefore I still have reason to trust and rejoice. Our lives, all of us, are filled with human shepherds. From the time we were little, with our mommies and daddies and grandparents, our teachers, various clergy, police officers, mayors, governors, presidents, executives in our corporations, and on and on. And if there is one common thread amongst all of those shepherds, it is that every one of them will let us down at least part of the time. Human shepherds, no matter how hard we try, will never get it completely right. And that's why we set aside this day to celebrate the shepherd who does always get it right. The shepherd who should be the model for all of our shepherding. I think where we human shepherds get it wrong is when we forget what it takes to be the good shepherd. And to be the good shepherd, one must become one of the lambs. Remember what it's like to be helpless, defenseless, in need of someone to care. When we remember that, then we have a pretty good hope of actually living into the image of the good shepherd. Every one of us here is meant to be a shepherd. In our baptism, we are not merely brought into water, but we are anointed with the oil of chrism, the oil used to anoint those ancient kings, the ancient shepherds of Israel. Each of us is set apart to be shepherds, set apart to be good shepherds, who embody the one who shepherds all of us. Shepherd and lamb, all in the same time, given by God for the life of the world.